So, Tyler, you ready for this one today?
I've got my pants down and I'm so ready to go. It's a strange thing to say in the middle of the night, but hey, you know, in the wee small hours of the morning, that's when we record.
Arnold Layne had a very strange hobby.
I'll say. Talk about moonlighting.
Yeah. So we're going to do Arnold Layne by Pink Floyd today, and let me give you a little history on the band Pink Floyd first. They're an English rock band formed in London clear back in 1965. They were a very early psychedelic group and well known for their experimentation when it came to music. They were founded by Syd Barrett, who played guitar and vocals, Nick Mason on drums, Roger Waters on bass and vocals, and Richard Wright on keyboard and vocals. Of course, you had David Gilmour join the group in 1968 as the second guitarist, but he was actually a replacement for Syd Barrett, who was struggling with drugs and mental health issues at the time. The band is huge, one of the best-selling artists of all time, sold over 250 million albums worldwide. They've been a huge influence, like many of the bands of the 60s, but Pink Floyd's been a huge influence on a number of artists. They were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1996. One thing about them, too, being from London, they're the second band after the Beatles to be featured on a UK postage stamp.
Wow.
So their debut album, which we're doing a song off from that time period, The Piper at the Gates of Dawn, was released in 1967. All in all, they've released 15 studio albums, 4 live albums, 12 compilation albums, 5 box sets, and 27 singles. Now, the song we're doing today, Arnold Layne, was actually their first single released, and it reached number 20 in the UK. The band's best-selling album of all time, you can probably guess, is Dark Side of the Moon, with over 30 million in sales.
That sounds nothing like this song.
No, not quite quite the same. A lot of their famous albums of Pipers at the Gates of Dawn, Dark Side of the Moon, Wish You Were Here, The Wall, Animals, many others. Their song Money was a top 20 U.S. hit, but Another Brick in the Wall, Part 2, hit number 1 in the U.S. and U.K. So after Syd Barrett left the group, Roger Waters was the main composer for the band. Dark Side of the Moon, of course, was released in 1973, reached number 1 in the U.S., but funny enough, only number 2 in their homeland, the U.K.
Oh, they didn't like it as much.
I guess not. Wish You Were Here, The Wall, and The Division Bell, which was released in 1994, all reached number 1 in the U.S. Pulse, which was a really cool double live album that I had, it was released in 95. It also reached number 1 in both the U.S. and U.K. in 95.
Let's see, Pulse, that's the one with the blinking
The
LED
blinking
light.
light, yeah, and it went for quite a while. It was pretty cool.
Wow.
But that's actually, funny enough, the album that got me into Pink Floyd. I was kind of a late adapter into Pink Floyd. I was into all the other bands, you know, the Beatles, the Doors, the Who, Creedence, Jimi Hendrix, all the main bands of the 60s. I was a late adapter of Pink Floyd, a little later than the other bands. But David Gilmour formed the new Pink Floyd in 1986, and that's when him and Roger Waters started having problems, and there's still to this day many problems between the two. The Division Bell was released in 94, like I said before. Syd Barrett passed away in 2006 at the age of 60, so the founding member of the Pink Floyd was gone then, which they were originally called the Pink Floyd, not just Pink Floyd, the Pink Floyd.
Oh.
Richard Wright passed away in September of 2008 at 65, and they're really well known for all the fights, the record companies and their contracts, and between Gilmour and Waters and a lot of that. So a lot of disagreements over the band. So, Pink Floyd, Arnold Layne. I can tell you what my history is with this, and it's very, very limited.
Nice.
I'm pretty big into a lot of Pink Floyd. I just don't get into their very early stuff that Syd Barrett had a lot of hand in. And sometimes I don't know if I should. I don't know. I'm not as drawn to it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I'll say this. It does not sound like Pink Floyd that we know. Very different sound.
The very commercial, popular Pink Floyd. This is definitely different. But if you put yourself in the times, this was probably...
This is very contemporary for the Beatles, the British Invasion. This sounds like maybe a more, not sinister is not really the word, but maybe a little more dark.
Yeah, there's something to it that makes it different than everything else coming out at the time. But
it's not as happy-go-lucky and light. It's got a little bit of a theme to it.
Yeah. So as far as me, I've heard this song a couple times before, but very, very limited. And most songs we review on here or albums we review on, I have quite a bit of experience in it. This is one of the first that I have very little experience in. This is the first time I've really sat down and listened to this song.
And this is my first time ever hearing about this song, and I'm in love.
Well, so should we get to the song review?
Absolutely.
And now it's time for the song review.
So today we're doing Pink Floyd and their debut single, Arnold Layne. It was released on March 10th of 1967. This was written and sang by Syd Barrett. It was recorded at Sound Techniques and EMI Studios in London. It was produced by a guy named Joe Boy. What a name.
Wow.
So, like I said, this was their first single released, and it was not released on an album, which was very common in the UK at the time. It was released months ahead of their debut album, The Piper at the Gates of Dawn. The B-side of this song was called Candy and the Currant Bun. I guess we should have listened to that one, too, because I'm not familiar with that at all.
No, that sounds very British, though.
Yeah, I agree. And sorry to the super Pink Floyd fans out there, because I do enjoy the group. I'm just not familiar with their early stuff. So I don't know if I've heard Candy and a Currant Bun either. So, but it sounds interesting. On the original single, the band is credited as The Pink Floyd. This reached number 20 in the UK charts. The single was later released on their 1971 compilation album called Relics and their 2001 compilation album called Echoes, the Best of Pink Floyd.
Oh, this definitely belongs on the Best of Pink Floyd.
I knew you would like this one just by the content.
Absolutely.
So you've got Richard Wright on here. He plays the Farfisa organ, which is an electric organ, and I really like what that adds to this. It gives it a different sound.
It's not your standard stereotypical organ. It's got some sort of singing to it.
Yeah, I'm not sure what a Farfisa organ is or what's different about it, but it definitely has a different sound. So the song is supposedly about a man who has a very strange hobby, like I was saying earlier, of stealing women's undergarments off of their clotheslines, their bras and, we'd say bras and panties, but since this is a UK band, let's call it bras and knickers.
Yeah. Or pants.
Something like that.
Oh, yeah. Knickers is such a great term.
And this man possibly not only is stealing these things, but he's stealing them so he can wear them because he's possibly a cross-dresser.
Oh, he's definitely wearing them. There's a full-length mirror. This guy is wearing the undies.
Yeah. So Roger Waters has stated the song was based off a real person. There's multiple stories out there about it if you want to go research it. But many people also think that Arnold Layne was just simply a parody of the famous Beatles song at the time, Penny Lane.
Sure.
So, and it could be both. It could be about a real man and a parody song at the same time.
Penny's perverted brother, Arnold.
Yeah, but a lot of people have said it's about a guy named John Chambers, who was the brother of one of Syd Barrett's girlfriends at the time, who was basically just a real perverted feller.
Yeah.
Yeah, you never guess.
Everybody's had a girlfriend with that brother that's a little wrong.
Well, and because of the content of this song, Radio London actually banned this song. And for some reason, even though the BBC was far more conservative, they either didn't get it or didn't understand it or whatever, but they didn't ban it, so it was fine.
They are fully committed to free speech.
They must be. I don't think they were, but I think they just didn't catch on to what the lyrics were truly about. So after listening to Pink Floyd, or the Pink Floyd, Arnold Layne, Tyler, what are your thoughts on this song?
I fell in love. This song is beautiful. Okay, hard open with the guitar and the vocals right in. And I like that, straight out of the gate. And it's very straightforward. Arnold Layne has a very strange hobby. And yeah, he sneaks out by the light of the moon and makes his way down the clothesline, stealing the undies. And then he goes and tries them on in front of his full-length mirror. But then he gets caught. Oh,
he has to do a little time, doesn't he?
He does. He goes to the chain gang and has to do some time. He's not having fun in jail. You can't steal undies when you're incarcerated.
Well, you could. I mean, you could work in the laundry.
I suppose, but you're just going to be stealing, Bubba's.
Yeah, you're not going to be doing any cross-dressing.
No, you're in with a bunch of guys. I don't think that they do laundry for the women's. I think they probably have their own laundry services at the women's prison.
I would assume so.
Yeah, this, there's so much to love about this. Okay, the thing is, this song doesn't sound at all like the Pink Floyd that we know, and Dark Side of the Moon is so far after this. This really does sound like Beatles era, the Who era. This is that British invasion time of the 60s. It really shines through and comes out that, okay, yeah, this is where we're at. And then Pink Floyd does blossom into themselves later on, but I don't want to just throw this one away. But it was noteworthy. I'm like, this does not sound like Pink Floyd. And yet it sounds really good. Syd Barrett on the vocals, perfect. And I think it's perfect that he wrote it, because it seems like you're really getting that sense of he's telling you this story from his own writing, his own experience. I love that. I love the instruments on it. I love that keyboard. There's something that just a little strange sounding about it. And that just really punctuates the tone of this song. It's such a strange theme that you're following this pervert around, and that he's not a very savory fellow, and he gets caught, and then he's got to do time. And well, after he's done his time, don't do it again, Arnold Layne. But I'll say, as we've been doing the talking about this and the discussion, the more I learn about this song, the more I love it. And I'm just thrilled to hear this song. This is my first time, and I'm just hooked. I love it. What do you think about Arnold Layne and his strange hobby, Justin?
Well, I'll have to disagree with you a little bit on it seeming like normal 60s falling in with the Beatles and all those guys at the time. To me, there's something different about it, and you could tell from the beginning that Pink Floyd was very experimental. The one thing I noticed with Syd Barrett singing, or Roger Waters singing, or even later David Gilmour singing, I'm sure the super Pink Floyd fans will say, well, I can tell the difference. It's just kind of like if you're listening to the Beatles sing, or let's say the Monkees or whatever. Some people, to casual fans, and I'm more than a casual fan, but I'm certainly attached to 3 or 4 of their later albums, but they do sound similar. Organ opening with the guitar, I really do like that. There's not much bass to note in this song, or the drums, they're okay, but they are very 60s. I've said it many times before that drums in the 60s, for the most part, just didn't seem to shine through real well. I don't know if it's just the way the music was made, the way they were mixed, I'm not sure, but the drums didn't seem to be a big focal point to bring forward. The one thing I really like in it is the organ all the way through. It has a little organ solo in the middle, which is kind of, to me, a little Doors-like. Don't think either would have copied each other, because I think at the timing, the Doors were coming out with their debut album, and it was kind of the same time, so I don't think that's anything. I think it's just kind of coincidence, but it does sound a little Doors-like.
The Doors organ sounds very different than this organ, though. There's something about this one.
Well, no, I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
I'm just saying the solo sounded a little Doors-ish
sure.
to me. Just the little solo in the middle. It's kind of got a staccato type guitar through all the verses, which I really like. Yeah, and all I can think is this had to be pretty strange at the time, and that's kind of why I said I don't see this as an atypical 60s British song. But Arnold Layne, my God, don't do it again.
Yeah.
So a decent song, it's kind of something I've wanted to experiment for a lot. I've heard all the early Pink Floyd albums maybe once. I don't visit them very often. Sometimes when I'm throwing out those playlists on Spotify or whatever, a lot of these early songs will fit in. But I'm kind of an album listener too, so it's just something I should explore. But the older I get, I don't find I have time to listen to the music I know I absolutely love and explore new music. I know that sounds silly, but I need to find more time to do it.
I got a question for you. What are your thoughts about the theory that this would be like a parody or a satire of the Beatles' Penny Lane?
I really don't see that. I don't see it in the music. The only thing, I read that doing a little research, and I can see, okay, Penny Lane, Arnold Layne. And of course, Penny Lane was a huge hit song at the time, and maybe, but of course, who knows? But I don't see any satire in it whatsoever, or a parody other than the Lane name. Penny Lane's about all the different places, and if you listen to the song, he's talking about all the people and the places, and this is about one man that's an undergarment stealing crossdresser. So I guess I don't see the...
Yeah, this is more like... from Tommy, the Who's Uncle Ernie fiddling about.
Similar, yeah. I don't really see the similarities there, and maybe there was, and I just don't know, but I don't see it.
No, I don't see it either.
So should we rate the song?
Let's do it.
Song rating.
Okay, if this is your first episode, our rating system is pretty simple. It's a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being the best, 5 being smack dab in the middle. I absolutely fell in love with this song. I'm giving it a solid 9. I almost want to give it a 10, but it just doesn't sound. And this is so stupid. It's so stupid for me to say this. I'm the only reason I can think of not giving it a 10 is it doesn't sound like other Pink Floyd songs. You Pink Floyd fans out there, you're absolutely right. I'm 100% wrong. This should be be a 10, but I'm giving it a 9 because I just can't give a song about a guy that steals women's underwear a 10. Even though in my heart it is. Where do you put this one, Justin?
You know, I knew when I wrote up this song, just simply because of the content, you would rate this song high.
Yes, you know me.
I mean, I'm listening to the music to hear some guitars or bass or whatever, and you just want a silly song.
I just want weird shit. Yeah.
Yeah, you do. And so I knew you would rate it fairly high. I'm nowhere near where you're at on this song. I'm barely above average on this one, and so I rated a 6.
You know, that's exactly where it should be.
It doesn't stick out to me, but let's be honest, I haven't heard this song enough either, and so I'm kind of putting myself in your shoes this time to where I'm hearing something basically for the first time, even though I've heard it a couple other times in passing. This is really my first listen.
This is a real special thing, though, because this is this their first single?
Their debut single.
So this is their very first single. This is what they come out of the gates with. And this is even before their first album. And so I'm just like blown away that this is what the foot that you're going to set down first, Pink Floyd, the Pink Floyd. That's shocking. And yet it's so fitting considering the way or the path that Pink Floyd would follow. You know, they became very experimental. They became very edgy. They wrote a bunch of songs. So there's a little bit of that foreshadowing in here of they're going to tackle some deep darkness on the dark side of the moon and stuff. But we don't even know about that yet because it's still 1967.
So that's Pink Floyd and Arnold Layne. Send us an email and let us know what you think. ClassicVinylPodcast@gmail.com. And like always, we certainly appreciate you taking your time to listen to us and let us know what you think.
Yeah.
Until next time, we'll see you later.
Thank you so much for listening to Classic Vinyl Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at Classic Vinyl Podcast for updates and also share us with your music-loving friends.